College football has never been stronger.
Every week will matter.
We're the one conference at this level where the name still means something.
There's not a more exciting collection of teams than in the ACC.
We will be the deepest conference in America.
We're coming for you. It's going down.
Oh, he brought some smoke, and he's on fire. Touchdown.
12 days away from the college football season kicking off on August 24th, but the excitement kicks off early with the much-anticipated preseason AP Top 25 rankings being revealed today. Let's start at the bottom of the top 25. Arizona comes in at number 21, and the Cats crack the preseason poll for the first time since 2015. Kansas ranks 22nd. The Jayhawks are ranked in the preseason for the first time in 15 years. USC, NC State, and Iowa round out the bottom three. Now we check out the middle 10 teams. Missouri comes in at 11th, and that's the Tigers' highest preseason ranking since 2008 when they ranked 6th. Now Clemson ranks 14th, and that's their lowest preseason rank in 10 years when they ranked 16th. Oklahoma checks in at 16 as it enters the SEC. And finally, the top 10. Georgia tops the preseason poll for a second straight year and third time overall, while Ohio State ranks second and Oregon third. It's the second straight season with a pair of Big Ten teams in the top 3. Texas and Alabama round out the top 5, and Ole Miss cracks in at number 6, which is their highest preseason ranking since 1970 when they ranked 5th, while defending national champion Michigan ranks 9th. Now let's kick things off with a team that is no stranger here. Georgia came in at number 1 for the third time in the preseason poll. Now, Sam, do you agree with UGA at number 1?
I absolutely agree with Georgia being number 1. Number 1, it starts with their quarterback, Carson Beck, 6'4", 220, threw for almost 4,000 yards last year, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks. But what's even more impressive is that even though Georgia didn't play their best ball last year, they balled when it mattered. On third down, they had the number 1 offense in the nation for third down. For defense, they were number 3. And so, though you saw times where Ladd McConkey was injured and Brock Bowers last year was injured, this team still, as a conglomerate, played dominant ball on the money down. Third down, money down, that comes to great coaching and players who understand football.
Sam, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that this is one of the most deep, talented football teams that Kirby Smart has had in Athens. It may be the best offensive line as a collective group that Georgia has had. And what I think is so unique about them is you look at them on defense, and you're a defensive guy, they got a difference maker in the front in Michael Williams, a difference maker in the middle at the second level in Smile Momden, and then Malachi Starks on the back end. They are an old, experienced football team that also has an infusion of young talent, particularly on defense. K.J. Bolden and Ellis Robinson IV are going to be 2 incoming freshmen that you're going to hear an awful lot about. So I love the blend of their depth, their age, and the youth coming in, and it all begins and ends if you've got a quarterback, and they've got one.
I'll double down on Lugs' point about the offensive line and make a bold prediction. I think the Joe Moore Award for the country's top O-line ends up in Athens this year. They return 4 starters who have a combined 80 starts, and look for Georgia to take a page out of USC's historic book and go student body right. That's where they have Xavier Truss at right tackle and Tate Ratledge at right guard. Those two have each started 28 games for the Bulldogs and give them a distinct identity up front.
Pete just kicking things off right here. Now, I want to note, though, that Georgia has never won a national title when they were ranked number 1 in the preseason poll. So we talked about Georgia, but how about the other 4? Rounding out the top 4 is Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas. Lugs, what's separating these 4 from the rest?
Well, I think there's some common themes and common denominators here. Number 1, all of these teams are built from the inside out, meaning the strength of their football team is in the offensive front, the defensive front, and at the quarterback position. You work your way out from there. The other common denominator here is age. These are old football teams, meaning there are a lot of redshirt juniors, a lot of seniors, a lot of redshirt seniors. And usually when you are an old team, you're a good team. When you're old with great players, you have an opportunity to be elite. And that's the common denominator across the board. Look at the quarterback position, look at the trench play, and look at the age of the players amongst those 4 teams. And it's why they're a bit of a cut above the rest of the pack right now.
And for me, it goes to coaching as well, not just age, but the consistency of top-tier coaches. I look at guys like Ryan Day, who obviously is an offensive, brilliant mind. But then go to Dan Lanning, young, defensive infusion, the former coordinator at Georgia. Now he's the head coach for the last several years at Oregon. You see that influx of talent. Texas with Steve Sarkisian, just this brilliant mind of coaching as well. And so for me, those top coaches and the top programs always seem to align.
I think one thing you can pick out of all four of these is they've each done a great job manipulating the transfer portal to address weaknesses. Look, Ohio State didn't think they were good enough at quarterback last year. They went and got Will Howard. Oregon really fortified itself on the lines in order to prepare itself for Big Ten play. And Texas goes and gets Alabama's best receiver, Isaiah Bond, to help juice up that offense for Quinn Ewers. Those schools all have the infrastructure in place to go out and address their needs.
Now that transfer portal, the experience, the age, it's all encompassing of why they are in the top. Now it's like fine wine, just getting better with age. Now, Sam, as a player, how much does the preseason poll matter?
Oh, it absolutely matters. Every time you get a ranking next to your name, it either can inflate your ego or potentially deflate your ego, though you may not want it to. I remember my junior year, we were at Texas. Back when we were actually ranked number 4. We actually were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, me and two of my teammates, Curtis Brown and Shockey Brown, and we thought we were something. Spring game, we're doing our thing, and Will Muschamp was our coordinator. We had a horrible spring game, defensive coordinator. He picked up the magazine. He said, y'all could take that magazine and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. Well, fast forward, we ended up having our worst year in probably like 30 or 40 years. Ended up being 5-7. That top 5, top 10, really, I think we were 4 ranking got to our heads. And so ego can inflate, which could also negatively impact your season.
Don't ever be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, man. That's the ultimate curse of college football, dude. You had to know it was coming. Listen, I think it does matter. You have to be slotted somewhere, right? You have to have a starting point. And, you know, the issue, though, is when you really look at how it's compiled, it's all based off of information from the previous year. So you're looking at, you know, how did the program end the season? Was it on a high note? Who did they lose to graduation? Who did they lose to the NFL? How did the transfer portal impact them during the offseason? And then I also think branding matters, right? Who are you in the hierarchy of college football could determine to some degree where you are slotted. The good news is now with the expanded 12-team playoff, if you happen to be at 19 or 22, or let's just say you're out of the top 25, you don't have to climb as far to get into the mix, where if that was the case previously with 4 teams in the playoff, you were out.
Well, Luke, can you just explain that a little bit more with the new 12-team playoff? How does that shift gears on teams' perspective with these rankings?
Well, if I knew that I was the 23rd ranked team coming into the season and I happened to go undefeated, to get to the top 4 being that far back, you not only have to take care of your own business, you're likely going to need some help from somebody else just to be in contention, to be in that position, because you'd have to climb so far from 23 all the way up into the top 4, meaning that others would have to be bumped out along the way. So you'd need help. But when it comes to the 12-team playoff, you're just trying to get into it. So now all of a sudden, that's not as big of a climb, and you may not need as much help because more teams are now allowed into it.
But the alternative is also true. There are certain teams that have a front-loaded schedule, but an easy schedule for the last 3 or so games, and they, because of strength of schedule towards the end of the season, may start sliding down that AP poll or even the college football ranking, while other teams who have more tough opponents at the end could jump them and could usurp them. And so when it comes to scheduling, it actually matters a whole lot more this season now that there's a 12-team playoff, because teams that have tougher games towards the end could end up climbing higher and stealing some of those spots from the teams that feel like they're sitting pretty.
Ooh, it's going to get interesting. Now, from 2014 through 2023, the #1 team in the AP Preseason Poll made the playoff 7 times. Now, the 2015 preseason #1 Ohio State was the only team from that group to not make the playoff before 2022, Alabama, and 2023, Georgia. So a lot to dive in there.
Give me something. Got a cigarette just so I can breathe.